Good evening, guys. Welcome along. It is 9:35 on Monday, the 1st of January, 2024. So this is the first stream, the first broadcast of the year. You're most welcome along. Bit of a dodgy camera angle this evening. Quite frankly, I was a little bit slow in getting ready, and that's why things look as they do. The reality is this is probably going to be a shorter broadcast than you're used to if you have been watching, and that is partly to do with the fact that I'm not totally prepared, or not as well prepared as I have been some other times. Just to say there are going to be some changes. So this is what things looked like up to now. So let me actually just pop that off there, and let's instead, do you know what, I'm just realizing you couldn't even see that, could you? No, you couldn't, you were looking at me. Let's swap this around and go like that. Okay, so yeah, what I was trying to show you was the schedule. Up until now, the schedule, at least for this week, looked something like that. But going forward, I'm going to get rid of the early broadcast, the 6 a.m. ones. Those are going because I simply do not have the energy nor the time, in fact, to keep those up. So things may have been different had I maybe gathered a significant following, let's say in the Pacific region, Australia, that sort of thing. The fact is that hasn't happened. Now, what I may do is, do you know what? Actually, let's get rid of that one, because that's not the best. Because that was specifically to do with this week. That's not the best one to modify. Let's actually pick one of the other ones. Is just the normal. Yeah, that's the normal one there. So if we copy that, let's open the paint thing. Okay, so times as shown below. So except for, as I say, these 6 a.m. ones, they're going. I'm just trying to decide actually if I want to maintain the 6 a.m. on Friday, given that it's the only one on Friday. I think, to be honest, I probably could manage a 6 a.m. one day per week. But more than that just simply isn't sustainable for me. So just bear with me while I fix this. Okay, so as I say, I think Friday maybe we will keep that 6 a.m. on Friday, but the others, I'm afraid to say, those other 6 a.m. broadcasts are just not feasible for me. They're just a little bit too early, and quite frankly, as I say, if I had been getting the following, then maybe I could justify it. The fact is, I don't seem to be getting the following. Now, what I could actually do, perhaps for some of the other days where there was a 6 a.m, what I could possibly do is to queue up a broadcast so that basically where a broadcast has been recorded the day before, then I could kind of replay it the following morning at 6 a.m. That is potentially something that I could do. And certainly something that I am considering. But yeah, for now, that what you're looking at there, that is what the times are going to look like. Let me just see what you're looking at, because I'm aware of the fact that there's a dirty great picture of me there. Okay, so yes, for the foreseeable, the broadcasts that I will guarantee, if you like, are starting on Sunday, starting on Sunday, 9:30 p.m. and that continues every day until Thursday. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 broadcasts at 9:30 p.m. And then, as I say, Friday morning at 6 a.m. will be the final one, and that is the one that will close the week. Now, for some of the other days, as I say, I may insert basically what will amount to a replay, but on some of the other channels that haven't actually been broadcast on. So, for example, I know that I can post a recorded video to YouTube as well as Rumble, and I can queue those up. I can schedule those to run at a particular time. So let's say, for instance, if I had been broadcasting on Telegram and say Twitch the night before, which is actually the case this evening. I haven't actually said that. I'm live this evening on Twitch as well as Telegram. Telegram, obviously, t.me/cheapskate streamer. And what else was I going to tell you there? Yeah, just actually to draw your attention to the link tree. Let me just swap things around a little bit. So the link for the link tree should be at the bottom now. It's linktr.ee/cheapskate streamer. And if you go to that, you can access the links there for Telegram, Rumble, X, Kick, DLive, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and you also have the option to buy me a coffee. So yeah, just to give you an example, let's say, for instance, if I had been live on Telegram and Kick or DLive or Twitch, I can't schedule things to run on any of those. So I could record the broadcast, and then subsequently I could upload the file either to YouTube or indeed to Rumble, and I can set those on a schedule, and those could then kind of repeat, if you like, perhaps at 6 a.m. on one or indeed both of those at particular times. So that might be an option going forward. It will depend a little bit on the content and how suitable the content would be for YouTube. Obviously no issue with Rumble for the most part. Although we do have to be careful perhaps with copyright, just where there's any music or anything like that involved. I know I have had a couple of issues on YouTube in the past, just whenever there's been a bit of music in a video clip, and I hadn't even really noticed the music, to be quite honest. But the algorithm did, and so far, to be honest, I've been lucky. It hasn't actually been an issue. but it could become one, and the last thing we want to do is to get a strike against us. Guys, you've seen this on screen already this evening. Let me just knock out that link and knock out my camera as well so that you can see this a little better, because I think it is better to be able to see it. So the first thing I want to draw attention to is this little post here by @thehealthbot, and the B0T is done in cowboy. There's a claim here which is basically not true, and this is why I'm drawing attention to it. You'll see actually the message that I have dropped underneath this, but as you can see here, it says the Australian government tells doctors to opportunistically vaccinate patients under anaesthesia. Okay, so I found that a little concerning / unlikely, I suppose. However, this link here is to the peoplesvoice.tv, according to that. So I followed the link, like so, which does indeed take you to the peoplesvoice.tv. And as you can see here, there is basically the same heading again, same image. And it says the Australian government has put out a notice instructing doctors to opportunistically administer vaccines. Now, let me just say, up to that point, that's fair enough. Yes, they have said to opportunistically administer vaccines, but you need to understand the context. This next bit is false. It is not to unwilling patients while they are sedated or under anaesthesia for unrelated procedures. Okay, so what they say here is Australia is one of the most vaccinated nations in the world. However, it appears the government has not given up on reaching a 100% vaccination rate. With or without the consent of those being vaccinated, that is absolute bollocks, and I'll show you why shortly. There's a little advert to sign up to the People's Voice. So this, let me just double check that that is a real Twitter account. It looks as if it is. Okay, so that actually looks like a verified account, or whatever you call that. Okay, so this is @died_suddenly_. So there's a lot of other posts there, but basically, if we come back to this, it says here. Now is that one of that is their post? It is one of their statuses. Let's just see if it loads, because that's really what I was trying to verify at this stage anyway. Okay, so this is where basically this is misinformation. Australian government puts out a chilling notice advising health officials to opportunistically administer vaccines to patients who are under sedation or anaesthesia. This is horrifying. Well, it would be if it was true. So they've taken this as a quote here, and we'll check the quote in a few seconds. Vaccines may also be administered opportunistically while patients are undergoing sedation for unrelated procedures. Now, as you'll see, there's a document mentioned here, ATAGI, advice on the use of sedation for COVID-19 vaccination. There's also a QR code. Now, handily enough, I have a QR reader installed, and that does actually pick up a website, health.gov.au, sites, default files, documents, 2022-04, presumably April. ATAGI advice on use of sedation for COVID-19 vaccination .docx. Let's open the link. I'm doing this live to let you see exactly what I'm talking about, and it really bugs me whenever I see this sort of thing where, you know, people are making claims that are not true, and actually all it does is it damages the movement, because there is enough there's enough out there to go on without twisting or inventing other stuff which is manifestly false. And actually, whenever I see this kind of thing, it makes me feel as though accounts like that died suddenly. Underscore, you know, that they have deliberately misled people. So let's read that again. Vaccines may also be administered opportunistically while patients are undergoing sedation for unrelated procedures. Let's go to the document and see what they say about that. I'm going to search for the word opportunistically. So there may be 5 instances. Opportunistic. Okay, there's only one instance of that. Now, it does actually say, this document does actually say, vaccines may also be administered opportunistically while patients are undergoing sedation for unrelated procedures. So, that quote is indeed a correct quote. However, and in fact, do you know what this? Okay, they've called it a chilling notice, but in fact, this bit, this post, this status, if you like, that actually is correct. But obviously they've put this is horrifying. They have kind of made a bit of an implication, okay, but where the misinformation comes in then is on the People's Voice, okay, because this is the misinformation. It says with or without the consent of those being vaccinated. Now I'm going to show you that that's bollocks. If we go to the actual document itself, let's go to the top of the document and we will have a read at it. So this is from the Australian Government Department of Health. I'm not sure why it doesn't really completely fit on the page, but it doesn't appear to. At any rate, it says Australian Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation. The heading is, so that's that Australian Technical Advisory Group on Administration, ATAGI. Advice on use of sedation for COVID-19 vaccination. It's dated the 6th of April 2022. They say under AIM to provide an overview of the principles for the use of sedation as one of a range of measures to assist in the safe administration of COVID-19 vaccines. Now, guys, it's this safe administration bit that we really need to pay attention to, because there is a logic behind this, and let's read on to see what that is. This advice is intended to be general in nature, noting that some health services have developed or are developing procedural guidelines for vaccination under sedation for their context. Detailed clinical guidance should be developed collaboratively with input from anaesthetic groups, jurisdictional health services, and relevant specialists. 2 seconds, guys. Okay, so under background, it says the process of administering a vaccine, i.e. giving an intramuscular injection, may cause severe anxiety in some individuals with anxiety disorders or needle phobia. So this is for a specific cohort of patients and or may be difficult in certain individuals with behavioral disorders. Okay, so let's say, for instance, you have a patient who perhaps normally is not in control of their limbs, may normally be thrashing about, and the chances of actually being able to insert a needle into their muscle without them thrashing and moving violently is going to be nigh on impossible. This is the sort of patient that this is talking about. So it says a tiered approach, initially using non-pharmacological measures, may assist in facilitating vaccination. In patients where non-pharmacological techniques have failed, so in other words, a non-pharmacological measure is basically where you may be able to safely vaccinate somebody if another member of staff is able to secure their limb using a mild amount of force, I would suggest. But that's not to say that this is being done against the people's will, okay? Because you'll see that shortly. I think we need to keep reading. So it does say then, in patients where non-pharmacological techniques have failed, so in other words, where using mild force to basically keep a limb still for the injection isn't sufficient, then sedation may facilitate safe administration of vaccines in some special circumstances. And here is the key bit, guys. Here it is. And this is where the People's Voice has completely misrepresented the reality. Okay, so as you can see here, I have blown it up, I have underlined it, I've put it in bold. Informed consent must be obtained prior to each dose from the patient themselves, or where the patient does not have the capacity to give consent, from the parent, guardian, or substitute decision maker. So I mean, this is basically just talking about capacity. This is not new. This is normal procedure within healthcare. Certain individuals are incapable of understanding and therefore giving consent to procedures. So in those circumstances then, either a parent, a guardian, or where the person is an adult, a substitute decision maker can be appointed by the state. I think it's quite a complicated legal area. However, as we see here, it says sedation should not be used as a measure to enforce compliance with vaccination requirements. And again, that's another key part of this document, which the People's Voice TV has completely failed to acknowledge or represent. So it says here, definition: sedation involves the administration of medications to depress awareness and reduce responsiveness to external stimulation to varying degrees. Anxiolysis involves administering a medication to reduce anxiety alone, where the patient is still able to respond verbally. Conscious sedation involves depression of consciousness, during which patients can still respond purposely to verbal commands or tactile stimulation and do not require any breathing support. So in other words, you may you may not be visually completely conscious, but if you're asked a question, you can still give a sensible response to the question, and if you are asked to move a limb or something like that, you can do, but you are conscious enough to breathe on your own. As it says here, then there's a third level, which is deeper sedation. It involves loss of consciousness, during which patients require breathing support. So that's basically the same as anaesthetic. It says here, indications for sedation. In most cases, sedation should not be used as a first-line option. Many individuals with anxiety or behavioural disorders can be safely vaccinated in the community using non-pharmacological techniques such as low sensory stimulation environment, presence of comfort, person or object, distraction with music, video or toys, relaxation techniques, and cognitive behavior therapy, for example, for anxiety or needle phobia. Possible indications for sedation include people with severe anxiety or needle phobia, and developmental or behavioural disorders, so basically people with mild learning disabilities, where non-pharmacological measures to facilitate vaccination have been exhausted. So in other words, you have to try the non-pharmacological measures first of all, a bit of music, a friend or a relative or someone who can try and keep their attention. There's a whole range there, and they've listed some of them. Basically anything that has been shown to work well with that patient in the past. So it says here the choice of sedative agent and the degree of sedation required will need to be determined on a case-by-case basis. And as the next heading says here, safety of COVID-19 vaccines under sedation, including co-administration with other vaccines. Now this is probably coming to the bit where they talk about opportunistically or something like that. So ATAGI considers all COVID-19 vaccines currently registered in Australia to be safe and suitable for administration under sedation. Vaccines can be administered under any type of sedation, i.e. conscious or deeper sedation. While there are no data on the safety of specific sedative agents given concurrently, that just means along with any specific vaccine, there are also no theoretical safety concerns. There are no theoretical concerns regarding immunogenicity or effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines if administered under various methods of sedation. It goes on, there are no concerns about the safety of COVID-19 vaccines if administered following use of various medications beyond the safety and risk of sedation itself. COVID-19 vaccines can be co-administered, in other words given along with other vaccines if required, including influenza and routine childhood and adolescent vaccines. Refer to ATAGI clinical guidance for COVID-19 vaccine providers. You can go and look that up if you wish. I'm not going to, but let's read on. It says there's limited evidence on the safety and effectiveness of co-administering COVID-19 vaccines at the same time as other vaccines. Okay, so at this point I'm going to I'm going to agree that probably the evidence is limited. I'm going to suggest that it's probably not a great idea, particularly if the other vaccines as well as the COVID one are using mRNA. And I suppose the other thing to say about it is that also it's perhaps not a great idea from the point of view that any vaccine is likely to challenge the body's immune system. And if you're getting two at the same time, that's a double challenge for your body to overcome. Now, quite frankly, a lot of the cohort of patients that this is aimed at will already have other underlying health needs, and the idea of giving them two vaccines at once, to me, seems a little bit cruel. If I'm honest, that's maybe not a great word to use to describe it, but that is how I see it. It does say providers need to balance the opportunistic need for co-administration with the benefits of giving the vaccines on separate visits. So, of course, because this is talking about sedating people, you know, if you're going to give two vaccines, basically what they're saying here is, look, you either have to decide we're going to give both of them at once, while the patient is sedated and, you know, they're just sedated once, or we're going to have to sedate them today, give them one of the injections, and then come back again another day, sedate them again, and then give them the other one. So, you know, it's tricky, tricky to decide. Is it fair to, is it right, you know, to do the vaccines on different days, and then to have to sedate the person twice or perhaps more, or would it be in the patient's best interest to only be sedated the once, and to take the chance that getting more than one vaccine at once isn't going to cause too many issues for their immune system. So let's see what's the next bit. There is the potential for an increase in mild to moderate adverse events when more than one vaccine is given at the same time. Okay, so I'm glad to see that they do acknowledge that. Basically, what they're saying here is there is a risk with giving more than one vaccine at a time. Co-administration or near administration, for example, within days with another vaccine may also make it challenging to attribute potential adverse events. Providers should ensure that parents or guardians of young children receiving COVID-19 vaccines are aware of the increased potential for local reactions. So actually, that is good advice there. That is properly considering the potential for things to go wrong. And as I say, you know, this thing by the peoplesvoice.tv has just simply, it's basically just dumped on that article. You know, they haven't admitted that there is any. They've not admitted that there's any safety consideration at all in this document, where in fact it's full of it. Let's read the next bit. So, procedural sedation guidelines. There are no best practice guidelines currently available specifically for vaccination under sedation. There is one small retrospective study demonstrating that vaccination under sedation is an effective technique for a subset of pediatric patients. In essence, it's an effective technique for a small number of basically children. and whatever that study is will be linked in footnote number 1. So it says here, ATAGI recommends that clinicians refer to the operational policies and guidelines of their local health service or facility regarding administration of vaccines under sedation. The choice of sedative agent and degree of sedation should be determined by the treating clinician, taking into account the patient's medical history, available resources, including a disability liaison officer service, if available, and local procedural sedation guidelines. They may not have actually said so explicitly here, but basically for some of the sedation that they're talking about there, you may well need an anaesthetist. So obviously if that's the case, then you have to have those staff available. And, you know, then along with that, you need to have the staff available to accompany the patient in the recovery room, etc., etc. Right, let's continue. Vaccines may also be administered opportunistically. Okay, so this is the quote that they had in that other thing. Vaccines may also be administered opportunistically while patients are undergoing sedation for unrelated procedures. So let me give you an example. If you had a patient with a learning disability who was needing dental treatment, and the only way to safely carry out the dental treatment was to sedate them, if the person in charge of making decisions about that person's care has consented to them being given a COVID vaccine, then they may decide to basically sedate the person once to undertake whatever whatever dental work is required, and then at the same time as the patient is already sedated, use that opportunity, or as they say, administer the vaccine opportunistically, basically while the patient's already sedated for their dental work. So in other words, they're trying to minimise the number of times that the patient needs to be sedated, and that's really what this is talking about. But as I say, the peoplesvoice.tv site has misrepresented the reality. They've tried to make out that consent is ignored, and that's totally not the case, as we've seen above. So it says here, vaccination under sedation may not be available for all ages in all states and territories. ATAGI recommends that state and territory health departments and specialist immunisation services be consulted to review the available services in their jurisdiction and ensure that sedation for vaccination is accessible for patients who require it. And then we come on to the post-vaccination observation. So all patients who undergo sedation for vaccination require careful observation in the post-vaccination period, ensuring recovery from the sedative agents used, and to detect any potential immediate adverse events relating to the vaccine. As it says here, minimum 15 minutes observation. The period of observation varies depending on the choice of sedative and local procedural sedation guidelines. So having actually accompanied somebody to have wisdom teeth removed, I have a little bit of understanding about what this is getting at. Basically, for the wisdom teeth, the person that I accompanied was given midazolam, which seems to have kind of caused a bit of short-term memory loss in that person. And the other the other feature of it, if you like, was that they were advised that they needed somebody to bring them home, and that they needed somebody to stay with them until the next day. The theory being that because of the sedation, they were at increased risk of not managing their airway effectively themselves, and potentially choking in their sleep. So that gives you some idea. Whenever they talk about the period of observation, in that specific example that I've just given in, in terms of the actual observation, really you're talking about a period of hours rather than minutes, in as much as the person can return home, but they need to be kept an eye on by a third party. Right, we must be getting near the end of this now, but let's go ahead. Risks and benefits of opportunistic vaccination during sedation for an unrelated procedure. So, opportunistic vaccination during an unrelated elective procedure undertaken under sedation or anesthesia may be appropriate for some patients and should be strongly promoted when possible, as it could avoid the need for a separate episode of sedation. That's basically what we have been saying all along here. You don't want to be sedating patients over and over again. It's not really in their best interests, and there are risks with doing so. So that's why they talk about doing this when there's an elective procedure being undertaken. So basically, if it's planned that, if there can be planning put in place so that when a particular dental procedure or something similar is going to be done, and also then there are other, let's say, other health needs or other things that are deemed to be necessary to be done. For example, in this case, the COVID-19 vaccination, then it makes sense to plan to do both at the same time. So it says here, opportunistic vaccination should only be considered during elective procedures where the patient is not acutely unwell. So in other words, if you're not well, then they shouldn't be doing more than they had actually planned to do to begin with. Immunisation providers and the clinicians responsible for the procedure should be aware of the following. Attribution of adverse events may be more challenging following vaccination during an unrelated procedure. For example, it may not be appropriate to provide COVID-19 vaccination during major surgery for an acutely ill patient. That stands to sense. If you have, if you need major surgery, then basically your body is going to need all its resources to try to heal and recover from that, and the last thing you need is a further challenge to your immune system by having a COVID jab stuck in your arm. Right, they also say overlapping adverse effects may increase discomfort for the patient. For example, fever, muscle aches, joint pain after vaccination. Yeah, so like if you've already got surgical wounds due to whatever operation or something like that has been done, the last thing you want is to be coming up with a fever and additional pain that you wouldn't have had other than the fact that they gave you a jag as well. The other slight risk with that is that if you do show a fever, let's say that the hospital is potentially going to suspect that there's some kind of an infection taking hold, and potentially due to the surgery. So it may make things complicated for them as well. And then finally it says here, the inflammatory responses and fever elicited by vaccines may interfere with the post-operative course. Basically suggesting that your healing and recovery could take slightly longer if you're given the jab as well. It does say, although surgery and anaesthesia are associated with transient, approximately 48 hours, immunomodulatory effects, these are not anticipated to interfere with an effective immune response to vaccination. And there's a couple of references there. First one entitled Immunisations Under Sedation at a Paediatric Hospital in Melbourne from 2012 to 2016. And the second one entitled Influence of Anaesthesia on Immune Responses and Its Effects on Vaccination in Children, Review of Evidence. And so that concludes that document. It's 3 pages long. And as I say, what was presented on the People's Voice here just totally misrepresented the facts. And there is absolutely no grounds for suggesting that that consent is being ignored. That is false. So that's why whenever I was on Twitter and I saw that, and I saw it shared by somebody else that I follow quite closely, I pointed out that part of being a member of the Resistance is conducting our own fact-checking. Having followed the link and accessed the document linked by QR code, I arrived at that document, the one I showed you here. It has been misrepresented. Informed consent must be obtained, is what's in the document. I'm pretty sure I would have, informed consent must be obtained prior to each dose. And also it says sedation should not be used as a measure to enforce compliance with vaccination requirements. So, as I say, a little bit frustrating to see that misrepresented in that way by the People's Voice TV, and unfortunately others have shared it without doing their own research themselves. Guys, I think actually that is probably going to conclude it for this evening. Not often that I come on to debunk something. Not often that there's the opportunity, quite frankly. But as I say, in this instance, I felt that it was important to set the record straight. And indeed, not just to set the record straight, but to point out the misinformation that has actually been spread elsewhere. So guys, the recording will be posted on the Telegram channel, so it's t.me /cheapskate streamer. I'll be posting that shortly after concluding the video here this evening. I'll be back again tomorrow evening at 9:30 or thereabouts with another broadcast. And if you find the broadcast interesting, why not join me on Telegram. As I say, t.me /cheapskate streamer. That's the best place to go, because I start all the broadcasts there, and then I move to other socials gradually, and just depending on what I have to present on the day, Some content can't be presented obviously on YouTube, and certain other channels. It just sort of depends what it is, and you kind of if you're a member of the resistance, if you've posted much on social media, you probably have a fair idea what I'm talking about. Basically, guys, the censorship is real, and we just have to be careful what we say, who we say it to, and how we say it. So yeah, with that said, guys, thank you for watching. If you are, please join me tomorrow 9:30 t.me/cheapskate streamer. For now, have a great end to your Monday, and Happy New Year once again. Thank you for watching.